I'm telling you, Loren Culp is a warrior for God, family, country, freedom, and Constitution.
Quiet on the set. It's go time.
Welcome to the show, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, Loren. How are you?
Excellent. Can you just introduce yourself? Let people know who you are, where you come from.
Well, there's a long story, but let's start off with where I'm from. I immigrated to the United States in 2003. My ethnicity and where I was born comes a long way before World War II. Where I was born, it was between the border of Ukraine and Romania, close to Moldova. My grandfather, on my mom's side, he was a refugee of the Germans. My grandma was taken as a child to Siberia. Yeah, I was born in my grandfather's house. At the age of 9, I immigrated to the United States. I still remember the excitement when I came to the United States. I couldn't hold my anticipation to see the United States flag as soon as we landed in New York. It was a symbol of hope. It was a symbol of pride. And I can't believe where we're at right now with the United States. Yeah.
That had to be a kind of traumatic, right? I mean, that's a big trip.
Yes. The lifestyle is very different. We grew up as farmers, gatherers. We had 2 cows. We were 6 kids in the family. We pastured cows. We had chickens. Everything we gathered, we stored it for winter to make it through the winter. That was our lifestyle. We came here for religious freedom. Europe is very Roman Catholic. My mom was Pentecostal, and my dad was Seventh-day Adventist. That wasn't seen very well, and we kids got the brunt of it at school. We weren't treated fairly. I mean,
just based on your religious beliefs.
Yes, to put it bluntly, is kind of the way it's happening with the political views right now. If you're one side demonized, you don't get the same level of justice. Exact same thing. And it gets to the part where bullying is the norm, where me getting punched in the face for no reason at school was okay.
So what did it mean to you to actually get to America?
To give you an example, we had this map of the globe, and we always thought that the United States was the biggest because it's the best. Okay, so that's the kids' mentality. The view of it, I can't compare. It's like paradise. Everybody comes here to think it's a paradise until they come and you have to work. I mean, this is not a pot of gold. It's a land of opportunity, but it's not a pot of gold. If you put the effort, you'll get more than you ever thought.
That's amazing. I've got a couple friends that have immigrated to this country, some as teenagers, some as adults. But it's always amazing to hear, an immigrant story, how they felt when they got here. It makes people that were born and raised here realize that America is special. We shouldn't take it for granted. A lot of people that were born and raised here just take it for granted. But when I was in the military, I traveled to different parts of the world, and I saw how people live in other countries. And America is very special. We have to fight to keep that. That's for sure.
Loren, let me just add this thing since you mentioned that. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves with the whole Marxism. For those that are promoting it, if you go to your laundry room and you put your laundry and hot water, you got soap, there's hot water, cold water mixture. You don't have to just push a button and it goes. That's just the biggest thing. You don't have that option. You go to a well. You reel up the water in a bucket and you heat it up over a stove with wood. If you have wood, most of my childhood, I remember my dad, gathering up some money to get a load of wood chips from factories. They were building furniture. So imagine smelling that smoke with glue and stuff because we didn't have wood to to put on in the furnace so you can heat up, make your food, clean your clothes. Just think about just that obstacle to go over. To know that you can just push a button, wash your laundry, wash your dishes, you turn your faucet on, you got cold and hot water. We take a lot of things for granted in the United States. And if we lose that and we go to Marxism, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get, going somewhere to get water so you can just do minimum things, small things, because it's that big of a difference.
Right. Okay. So what do you do currently? You're a legal immigrant. You're a citizen
Yes.
of the
Since you
United States of America.
this is my biggest pride. My dad did his citizenship. I was under the age of 18 when he did it. I would have passed with everybody else because I was under the age of 18. But I didn't want to. I wanted to do it myself. So I never went to the ceremony. I never went to the interview. Therefore, I was not given the U.S. citizenship because I wanted to do it myself. And I think it was until 2014 is when I did my citizenship test. I learned, the United States Constitution briefly. I learned about the country, how it was built. And my biggest pride right now in the United States is getting this right here. This is my citizenship certificate. It was a big honor. And my wife's father-in-law, he's a veteran from Vietnam. So after I did my citizenship, I did my ceremony, and I came home. He greeted me with a brand new U.S. flag. So that was a big honor. He's no longer with us, but that is a memory that will always cherish.
Okay. And how old are you now?
I am 30 years old.
And you have some concerns about the voting and the ballots that we're using right now in Washington State. Can you go over
Yes.
this a little bit?
Don Amon here, president and founder of Minuteman Coffee. Want to welcome you to the coffee revolution. We may not be everybody's cup of tea, but we are the coffee for we the people. Come join this coffee revolution, see what all the hype is about, and help us restore the republic.
Available at minutemencoffee.com or at Griggs in the Tri-Cities.
Prior to doing my citizenship, I got my driver's license. Well, in 2008, I got a ballot. I was not a U.S. citizen at that time. I shouldn't have been allowed. I shouldn't have gotten that ballot, but I did. The only thing I can think of, DMV registers people without their knowledge that as soon as you register to get a driver's license, you get a ballot. And a lot of people don't know what they're voting for. They see a D next to a person's name. They just think of democracy. See, everybody talks about democracy. I got that ballot. I opened it up, and I'm looking all over the ballot. I don't understand none of it. All I know, the president and the state secretary. I don't even know what a secretary does, and other things, laws that they're trying to pass with numbers. I have no clue. The only thing I knew is the democracy. So let's just check all the D's. Let's mark all the D's, and not knowing if that will reflect my values, my lifestyle, what I want this country to be or not to be. So, but prior to signing anything, I asked my history teacher, I'm not a US citizen. Should I even vote? Like, is this legal? What am I getting at? Like, you got it. Just go ahead and fill it out. I filled it out and sent it in. Fast forward to 2014, 2013 is when I went to Yakima, Homeless Security, and got my paperwork done and do the interview with one of the agents. And I think it was one of the first or the second questions that she asked me was, have you voted in the United States since you came here? Well, I didn't know any difference. I got a ballot and I was honest. And I told them, yes, I did. She looked with big eyes at me and she told me, you are not a U.S. citizen, therefore you are not allowed to vote. At that point, I thought I was going to get deported. I mean, I broke one of the biggest laws there is. I mean, you voted, but I got a ballot. I was afraid at that point. Am I going to get deported? And luckily, she just calmed down and she said, "Don't worry, you're not a citizen yet. So therefore, hold your breath and calm down," because she saw I was afraid.
Okay, so you got a ballot after you got a driver's license. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, that's the only thing that I can tell you, Lauren, that I can put two and two together. I never asked, I never filled out, I never went to the auditor's office. I don't even know what an auditor's office is.
Right.
To tell the truth. And this is, let me just say this. This is in Oregon. Now to fast forward, 2017 is when I got with the United States Post Office.
So you've been working for the U.S. Postal Service for about 5 years. Is that correct?
5 years. In November, it will be 5 years.
What did
Five
you
years.
start seeing when you were an employee there?
All right, it's in October 14th, 2020. Red flags all over. Here's what happened. We have two different trays. One tray comes from Spokane, where the mail is all sorted. For example, all the ballots, wherever they're printed, they go to Spokane for sorting, and then it comes down to Tri-Cities. I deliver my route. I deliver all the mail. I come back with a nice 1 inch or 2 inches of ballots, just ballots. Other mail, maybe one or two sorted, a missortment. But these ballots do not belong to my route.
Not famous for being efficient.
Yeah,
Do you see missorted mail all the time, or just
that's a good point, Lauren. No, the scale that it happened was very, very suspicious, and that's when I started kind of like paying attention throughout 2021. The levies that we had, they didn't do this. They sent us on a scanner. They call it a RIM message, basically a text message, but on your scanner, asking us to separate ballots from the mail so that when we get back to the office, we don't send that to the mail stream. When they're asking us to separate them, they postmark them at the office here instead of going to Spokane. With a bad actor on what's happening, I mean, the supervisor may have a different, or a carrier may have a different opinion. Would you imagine what would have happened with those ballots? You voted, you took your time. They might not be sent at all. They may be postmarked differently. So that's what's another problem. But the biggest problem that I've questioned myself in the November 2020, and I tell you why it's November 4th. On November 4th, we got a RIM message, one of these text messages on our scanner, saying to separate all the ballots and upon return, give it to a supervisor. The election is on November 3rd, not November 4th. Why are you sending a RIM message, a text message to our scanners on November 4th, unless all those ballots get given to a supervisor and stamped with a date other than the date that we brought him back, which was the 4th. I took a picture of that. I was
are
very.
you saying that ballots were postmarked on the 4th for the prior day? Is that what you're saying?
I do not have proof of that, and I can't make that allegation. But it begs the question: why are you asking for ballots to be handed to a supervisor and separated when it's already late? I mean, if somebody weren't aware when the election is happening, and they sent it on the 4th out, and we as carriers brought it back, it don't matter. We shouldn't be giving it to anybody. We should just go to the mail stream and goes to Spokane as late. It's late. But when you're asking a carrier to separate it and give it to a supervisor, then raises a question: why? Why? We only do this because the ballots don't reach in time, to Spokane to get postmarked. By the time it requires to be postmarked, the last 2 days. If you see what I'm saying. And that's why we're holding it off on the last 2 days, and we don't send it to Spokane. But after that, it doesn't matter. It's late. I just questioned it. I documented. Fast forwarding August. On August 4th, I believe.
Yeah, it was the first part of August. August 2nd, I believe, was the primary for 2022.
So, and the ballots were sent on my route on July 13th and the 14th. July 13th, I came back. This was beyond scary. In 2020, when that happened, when I came back with that little stack of ballots, about 30, 40. But imagine if you get, 30 routes with 30, 40, ballots each. Uh, Now, in July 13th of this year, 2021, for the primary, I came back with a stack this much. It exceeds about 4 inches in missortment ballots.
Okay,
Um,
and pretty much the same route that you had before.
yes,
Okay,
but the thing is that it didn't just happen only on my route. It happened on everybody's route. And the way I know that is because once things are missorted, we have a designated area. It's called a hot case, where there's a clerk, and the following day, when we bring all the ballots at the end of the day, the following day, a clerk sorts them out and puts them to the right route that belongs to. Now, you may say that that's fine, but my question is, it happened that in 2020. It didn't happen when we had the levies in 2021, and it happened in the primary. And I thought that in 2020, maybe they just were training somebody new and they were sorting. It was basic error, but it wasn't that. It can't be that because it happened in the primary. So it seemed that, when somebody that, it's a big election, the whole country votes on, uh, that's when it tweaks it, and not at the scale that I've seen with, especially in this in July 13th of this year when I delivered the primary. Uh,
it's just very strange, right, to you that most of the mail that you get is not missorted. It's
no,
not
no,
sent to the wrong route, but ballots were overwhelmingly right.
yes, Lauren, there was the post hiring when it started hurting with because carriers were retiring with the COVID and stuff. The post office started sending that the United States Post Office is hiring, and there were these little thin pieces of paper, which makes sense because like brand new bills, that when the rubber roll rolls them, sometimes it gets two or three at a time, which makes sense to be missorted because it's just such a thin paper. But these are not thin paper. I'm talking about this is thick. This is big envelopes that just go so fast to the machine. Unless they had a high volume, which was a high volume, but you don't pressure the system to where they missort and that bad. In July 13th of this year, everybody with the area code 99352 came back with a huge stack of ballots and assortment. And I've asked multiple carriers, did that happen to you too? And they're like, yeah, I think I remember that happening. They don't really pay attention. Like I said, we all have families, we all work really long days, and we really don't pay attention to it. But like I said, I really don't like when I'm being lied to or my documents get lost or misdelivered. What is such a big deal about this missortment? Well, when you pressure carriers, like in any other job, you're bound to do a mistake, make an error. When I came back with that stack that I'm talking about, it was July 13th. Well, July 19th was when I'm going to this rack, and on the tray that is labeled for attempted but not known, basically all ballots. That is hard to imagine that so many ballots were attempted to a certain address and then not there. Okay, so I'm talking about, close to 1,000. That is not the first encounter that I've had. Ballots are nonprofit. If you look at the postage you put, there's a little square. It says nonprofit. Well, nonprofit without the electronic service request goes to oven, goes to that garbage, and it goes to recycling. But prior to the recycling, I can't emphasize this enough that it does get checked one last time. But when is when the post office is relieved of the volume of mail. So it could be there after. So if a ballot ends up in the oven, it will stay in that crate until the post office kind of relieved of the pressure, and then they'll just go through it, and then they'll circle, hey, this one needs to be forwarded or sent to the right address.
Okay, and you saw a lot of ballots going into the junk.
There was yes, there was one occasion where I had one of the carriers transfer from California doing this route. I'm not sure what happened in that situation, but what I've seen was I was walking by this tray where all the forwarding mail goes, and it's all ballots, like a nice little stack like this. I'm like, this is hard to believe that it's all forwarded, and most of it is still in the same order with the route. So I questioned it, and I asked one of the supervisor, and he's like, well, it must be forwarding. I mean, I don't know nothing about it. And I checked because you can take the address and the street name and the block, and I can go to a case, and case meaning a table to where we sort our mail, look to which route it belonged to. I'm not going to say which route it belonged to, but I would say that I found the route. Then I talked to one of the ladies that was basically a sub for multiple routes. And I asked her, I was like, it's hard to believe. And she goes, oh yeah, I spoken with that carrier about those ballots. He tossed those ballots in that bin that it's UBM, which goes for recycling. First it goes to that crate, then gets checked, then goes to recycle. He tossed it because it fell out of order out of his what we call a DPS. That's the trays that come from Spokane, already sorted by the machine. He didn't want to deal with this, sounds like, and he just tossed it because he saw that it's nonprofit. But he missed the part where it says electronic service request. All mail that has that writing on your on any piece of mail is forwardable. With that being said, if it was in an oven, it would have stayed there, then it dumped into a tray, and then whenever the post office gets relieved of the pressure of mail, then the clerks will go through and make sure that it's not, it's actual garbage, and goes for shred in Seattle. This lady pointed out to the carrier that did this, and instead of taking the mail and actually casing it up, so basically putting an order, he took it and put it in the forwarding tray, and that's where I come in, and I saw it, and I pointed out to the supervisor. Then I pointed it out to the postmaster, and I was like, hey, this is still in order, some of it. And I told him, you need to train your carriers to know the difference between things that are forwardable, the one that are trash. I mean, we get training, but this is just negligence at a high level where this mail needs to go out. People are not getting their ballots. This is documentation.
Okay, so those are some things you saw before the election when the ballots were just getting mailed out.
Yes, this was for the primary. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
for in 2022, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and did you see any more things happening up right close to the election or after the election that you can let us know about?
What happened? What happens with the ballots, and who stamps them or postmarks them? And I really wanted to see that process because never have I ever seen in 2020. I didn't see it. I mean, we were gone and went home, and they do it after that when we're gone. But I actually in this past primary, I actually got which was August 2nd, the night of the election. I got to see how they do it, which was I was done with my route. I came back to the post office, went inside. I started putting my stuff away. One of the clerks with a stamp stamps ballots, just with a stamp. And I was looking at that stamp, and I was like, well, what does this stop somebody like from tampering with it? Is there something that stops from rotating the dates back or forward? Because that's a big question. And who gave the United States Post Office permission to do that, to postmark things with a fraudulent, stamp? Which, I mean, if you can rotate the dates back and forth or whatever date you want, I mean, somebody with a bad intention could postmark things in a poor manner.
So these
And
are ballots that you're seeing stamped with a date, with a hand stamp that you could just rotate the date on if you
yes,
wanted to.
yeah, that's where my question goes. My question goes to that was my suspicion about the stamp, which I got it confirmed by a clerk later on, which I would bring it up again.
Okay.
That's a stamp that can be messed with. He's stamping and he's stamping. I didn't think nothing of it, and that's when it clicked to me, is that in 2020 they asked us on November 4th to bring all the ballots to a supervisor. Now he has a stamp that I can fidget with and change the dates. Now I'm not saying they did, not yet. I don't have any proof, but that was my suspicion. And this is where it comes back all into a big picture. The following day, I wasn't working, but one of the clerks came back, and all of those ballots that this gentleman was stamping were dated with August 3rd. Now, how does that happen? All the mail comes at the end of the day, not at the beginning of the morning, which was like 4 o'clock when she comes in, and she sees these trays with ballots that are dated August 3rd. But the gentleman that when I came in that night was August 2nd. The only thing I can tell you, Loren, is that he was stamping with the wrong date. He had the stamp rolled a day ahead.
Okay, so this is when you came back from your route, you go in there and this clerk is stamping ballots. This is August 2nd, right? Day of the election. You're seeing ballots stamped for August 3rd.
Yep. I came back at 8:30 p.m. and that he was stamping. I'm not saying he's a new clerk. I'm not sure if it was his fault. I'm not sure if it's negligence, but there was, ballots postmarked with the wrong date. He was supposed to have been postmarking those ballots with August 2nd, and those ballots were seen by a fellow clerk the following day at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, with the stamp of August 3rd. So he was stamping with the, postmarking those ballots with the wrong date. So basically,
which would make them invalid because they're supposed to be postmarked before the end of election day to be counted.
Yes, that's why we bring the last 2 days. That's why we bring us and separate all the ballots, and we bring them in and we give it to a clerk or to a supervisor. We put them on a separate tray for stamping, because by the time it reaches Spokane, it might not be in time. So mail-in ballots, this is where a lot of the things that it's not seen, not known, but it's happening.
Okay.
So yeah, and don't know the date, but a few days after that lady came into the office and saw what happened that morning of, which would have been August 3rd. I've spoken with one of the clerk, and I asked him, what is the likelihood somebody could just roll that stamp at any dates they want? He's like, I do that all the time, Paul. I can change any dates I want. I mean, it's not set in stone. And as a matter of fact, you should probably talk to this other person that she saw of what happened on August 3rd, because it actually happened. It actually got postmarked with the wrong date. And that's when I got a report, a statement, not a report, a statement from her stating of what she saw. She came in, she saw these trays with ballots postmarked with the 3rd, the morning of. I mean, we're talking about 5-6 hours after he posted.
Okay, so I mean, this brings up the question, right? I mean, people know, political campaigns, operatives, anybody that works with campaigns, they know, well, this zip code votes overwhelmingly conservative, or this zip code votes overwhelmingly liberal. And so someone who wanted to do nefarious things could change the date, stamp ballots in a particular zip code. They could stamp it as late, or they could take ballots from a certain zip code that aligns with their political views. They could stamp a bunch of late ballots as being on time. That's what you're telling me, right?
That's right. And Lauren, it's not that we carriers don't know who votes the way which way they want, which
Mhm.
way they vote. Uh, I have when I deliver mail, I know which way they lean, by which way whoever they give their money. So if you give your money to Planned Parenthood, I know which way you're going to lead. Okay, so lean. So if I know somebody who's big on animals and they donate to SPCA, so in this framework, I know who's voting which way. And as a mail carrier, you could, if you have bad intentions, you could not hold that mail or hold those ballots until till day of the election, which I've heard happen. I don't have any proof, but I've heard that they hold it off until the day of the election and they deliver those ballots there. It's late. I mean, if you get your ballots the day of the election, unless you're going straight to the auditor's office and you're
Right.
there, you're not working some like overnight and night grave job, then you don't get to vote.
Well,
So
this is what I mean. What I've said many times, what other people have said as well about mail-in voting. There's no chain of custody. There's no supervisor watching mail carriers or the clerks in the post offices or even in where they sort the mail in Spokane. There's no chain of custody. Nobody knows who's handling it. Nobody's watching who's stamping. Obviously, they're getting misdated. So that opens up the potential for someone to do things that aren't right.
Lauren, and that's the thing. You don't know me very well. We just know about each other, but you don't know me personally. What are my intention? Am I a good person? Am I truthful? And a huge community is relying on one person or one entity to do the right thing. Where are there the laws on the books to hold these people accountable? How are they monitoring it? It's out there. And it's not that it's not only that this is minuscule to what is happening. What happened to me when I got a ballot, when I registered, when I got my driver's license. If they are doing that, would you imagine all those people that are coming over the southern border and they get a driver's license?
Right.
To get your firearm, you need your background check through the FBI. These people get a driver's license and get to vote. I mean, that changes the dynamic of which way the country is going. So if you're, let's say, a Democrat, which was back when, like a JFK, so you have the same values, which there are very few now. You have the like Nancy Pelosi, because I talk to a lot of people that are like scared of her.
It leaves it open for people to do things that are not, first of all, legal,
Yeah,
and it's not moral.
it's not. There's no integrity. There's no accountability. There is no checks and balances. Our founding fathers knew that the human condition is to fall. This whole thing where there's no checks and balances, where there's no accountability for those that come into this country illegally or have a green card. For example, I shouldn't have been allowed to vote, and I was
Yeah.
yeah.
Washington State, for a very long time, if you go to get a driver's license, you can register to vote. It's motor voting. That's what it was called, the legislation, and it got to the point where they don't even ask anymore.
No.
That box, I have seen sworn testimony from DOL employee that box on the computer when somebody's getting a driver's license is already checked that they're a registered they're going to be registered to vote. They're not even asked because it's a state law that you cannot ask someone their immigration status. So Washington State, along with probably Oregon and California, are registering people no matter what their nationality is, no matter whether they're a U.S. citizen or not, which is very wrong. The law clearly states that only U.S. citizens are allowed to vote.
And that brings the question, Lauren. I believe it's the 14th Amendment, the right to vote, and it needs to be a free and fair election. There is no fairness, and where's the accountability for that? I mean, we as citizens pay taxes to support everything that's happening. For example, food stamps, roads, housing, you name it. We pay in taxes, and then you give that right to somebody who comes into this country illegally.
What is more sacred, as far as government goes, than the people's ability to decide who is going to be in positions of leadership? What's more important than the citizens being able to have a voice and vote, and only citizens? I cannot imagine going to Russia or China or Great Britain or France, any country in the world, and getting a ballot and voting for who's going to lead their country. It's not my country. I'm not a citizen there. I shouldn't be voting. They don't allow it. We're allowing it here, which doesn't make any sense unless you're trying to change the entire country.
Only in the United States can you go into a agency and slap your hand on the desk and demand things. In Ukraine, you don't do that. I mean, you just don't. In Ukraine, in Russia, you go to jail. I mean, you get participate into that. I mean, we've seen even in China, you try to demand something, they'll label you that you are a spy. They will label you as a treasonous person. If you're coming the right way, I came the right way. My parents came the right way. We had to sell everything. Why did these other people that don't have to sell anything, they come in with iPhones and Nike shoes over the border, and everybody else has to sell their cows, their home, and leave everything they've ever knew, and knowing that there's no way back.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it?
I love a lot of the quotes from George Washington and many others. One of them was, "Our children are the guardians of this country," to paraphrase it.
Mm-hmm.
But we can do as much as we can of training our kids to be the guardians of this country and of the Constitution and the laws that are that we run by. But if we let other nationalities with different minds and come into this country and demand things and vote into elections, and we don't know who they are, there won't be a country. It's in state, Oregon, and so many states that they do mail-in voting.
Mm-hmm.
Trojan horse.
All right, Paul. We had to redo your set. Basically, you had to move to another room. Your kids got home, right? So we could have some quiet time to talk. But with all that being said about the ballots and mail-in voting, do you have a message for the voters and for the elected public servants that are in charge of our voting?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Especially for all the citizens of Washington, even Oregon, for that matter, wherever it's happening with mail-in voting. One thing I could add is do not wait to vote on the last 3 days of the election and then put them into the mailstream. Take them to your auditor's office. The box that it's only for ballots, if you're closest to that might be, but do not send it back into the mailstream. The blue boxes, there are collections for the post office. Do not send them through there. It's very crucial. When you vote, do make sure and go back online and search your name. Make sure that your ballot was received and that you voted. For those that have learned the hard way, like I did, and didn't know if I was allowed to vote, and you got a ballot, reach out to Culp, reach out with somebody, and speak up. This shouldn't be happening to where we are non-citizens and we are put in a tough and hard place. We need to speak out and make sure that we understand our laws and that only if you are a citizen you are voting. And if you are a citizen, you're not sure how the United States Constitution, the state constitution work, and you don't know what you're voting for, get involved. Know what you're voting for. Not like I did. I voted all Democrat in 2008, thinking that I'm voting for democracy against the republic. That was my mentality. Well, I learned some things the hard way. I implore all you Washingtonians, Oregonians, and other places that are doing mail-in ballot, get involved and know what you're doing. It may not be your values who you're voting for. That's all up to you. I'm saying this to every single American and every single one that are here on a work visa. If you're getting a ballot, America will only stand if we protect it. If we don't, there's not going to be another America. So we've got to protect our rights.
All right, Paul, very well said. I appreciate you being on here. And a lot of people are afraid to come on and tell what they know. You know, this is just trying to save our country and eliminate the ability for people to do illegal things. So I really appreciate your input and your insight. Hope you have a great day.
You too. God
All
bless
right. Take care.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.